I was standing in my Phoenix living room on a scorching August afternoon in 2024 when my daughter-in-law, Vanessa's voice, crackled through my speakerphone. The heat outside made the air shimmer through my windows, distorting the desert landscape beyond. "You'll never see your grandkids again. Not their birthdays, not Christmas, nothing. They don't even ask about you anymore." I laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not a bitter one, a genuine, confident laugh that came from somewhere deep in my chest. I heard Vanessa's voice falter, mid-threat, like she'd expected tears or begging. "We'll see about that," I said, my voice steady as granite. I ended the call and immediately dialed my estate attorney. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. Because Vanessa Martinez had just threatened someone who'd spent 38 years winning custody battles in Arizona family courts. She had no idea what she'd just walked into. My name is Maxine Carter. I'm 65 years old and I've been a widow since September 2021 when my husband Leonard died of a heart attack at 67. I live alone in our North Phoenix home, the same house we bought in 1987 for $89,000, now worth over $500,000. My only income is Social Security and Leonard's pension. Simple life. Quiet life. Until my son's wife decided I was the enemy. My son Darius is 41, works as an IT manager earning $95,000 a year. He married Vanessa in June 2015. She was 30 then, he was 32. They have 3 children I'd do anything to protect. Twins, Aiden and Sophia, who just turned 8, and Jordan, who's 5. Vanessa claims she's a freelance marketing consultant, but she hasn't worked consistently since 2019. Darius supports the whole family alone. And here's the part Vanessa didn't know when she made that threat. I'd been preparing for this exact moment for 3 years. Why did I laugh when she said I'd never see my grandchildren again? Because she was threatening me with something she didn't control. She never had control. She just thought she did. Let me explain what Vanessa didn't know. Before my husband Leonard died in September 2021, he established irrevocable trust funds for each of our grandchildren, $175,000 per child, $525,000 total. And he saved that money for 15 years, from the day Darius told us he wanted to start a family. Leonard was a certified public accountant who specialized in estate planning. He understood how money could destroy families if not protected properly. I'm the sole trustee of those funds until each child turns 18. Not Darius, not Vanessa, me. But here's the part that would have made Vanessa's blood run cold if she'd known. Leonard included something called a parental conduct clause in the trust documents. He insisted on it after witnessing similar conflicts in his accounting practice over the years. Families torn apart when divorcing parents used children as weapons, when grandparents who could have protected inheritance were cut off by manipulative spouses. The clause was simple and brutal. If either parent uses the grandchildren as emotional leverage against me, if they weaponize access to punish or manipulate me, that parent forfeits their access to the trust funds entirely. Their spousal share transfers to the other parent or a designated guardian. Leonard wrote it himself, had it reviewed by 3 separate attorneys, made it ironclad. Vanessa had just activated that clause with 1 phone call, but that's not the only thing she didn't know. When family weaponizes your grandchildren, subscribe to see how I fought back. Where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments. She also didn't know I'd been meeting Aiden, Sophia, and Jordan every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 1.5 years, since January 2023, at their school. You see, 8 months before that August phone call, Vanessa had made her first threat to cut me off. It was in January 2023, after I gently asked about school supplies that hadn't been purchased, despite Darius giving her money for them. She exploded, banned me from their Glendale home, told me I was interfering with her parenting. My son Darius appeared at my door late one night that same week. He looked exhausted, torn, defeated. He told me he'd found a Casino Arizona receipt in Vanessa's purse, $380 in slot machine losses on the same day she claimed she'd forgotten to buy Sophia's school supplies. He didn't want a divorce. Not then. He still hoped she'd change. But he offered me a solution. Desert Vista Elementary needed volunteer lunch monitors. If I applied, I could see the kids during lunch periods twice a week. He'd provide written authorization as the custodial parent. He was listed as primary emergency contact. The principal, Dr. Rochelle Turner, agreed. She knew Darius from PTA involvement. She'd noticed Vanessa's erratic behavior at school events, too. So starting in March 2023, every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 in the morning, I'd sit with my grandchildren in that elementary school cafeteria. We'd eat together. They'd tell me about their week. Jordan would show me his latest drawing. Sophia would quiz me on her spelling words. Aiden would talk about soccer practice. Vanessa never knew. Have you ever had a backup plan so good you almost wanted someone to test you? That's what I had. For 18 months, every week, watching my grandchildren grow, staying in their lives, documenting every moment, building evidence that I wasn't the absent grandmother Vanessa would later claim I was. So when she called in August 2024 and said, "They don't even ask about you anymore," I knew it was a lie. Because I'd seen Jordan that very morning at school. He'd hugged me and asked if I could come to his birthday party in September. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand what led to that August phone call. 2 weeks before Vanessa's ultimatum, she'd approached me with what she called an incredible business investment opportunity. Her voice on the phone was different that day, friendly, almost sweet, like we were close friends instead of two women who'd been circling each other warily for years. She said a friend was launching a medical device startup. They needed angel investors. $50,000 would yield 30% returns in 18 months. Darius doesn't understand business risk, she told me, but you were a lawyer. You understand calculated investments. This could set up the kids' college funds. The pitch was smooth, rehearsed, desperate. I asked for the business name, incorporation documents, her friend's contact information, a prospectus. Vanessa became evasive immediately. It's still in stealth mode. They can't disclose publicly yet. When I pressed for even basic details, the industry, her friend's full name, the projected timeline, her tone turned ice cold. You don't trust me. That's what this is really about. That's why my kids don't want you around anymore. She hung up on me. I spent the next 2 days researching. No medical device startup registered with the Arizona Corporation Commission under the name she'd reluctantly provided. The contact number she gave me, disconnected. This wasn't an investment opportunity. This was desperation. You're probably wondering how I knew, how an attorney who'd spent decades in family court could spot financial deception so quickly. It's the tone. When someone's lying about money, they get defensive before you even challenge them. They attack your character instead of answering your questions. They make you the problem for asking. Vanessa did all three in under 5 minutes. But I didn't know then what the $50,000 was really for. That revelation would come later, and it would be worse than I imagined. The trust funds weren't just about college. They were about ensuring that if Darius or Vanessa ever self-destructed, the children would still have something safe, something untouchable. And now, sitting in my living room with Vanessa's threat still echoing from my speakerphone, I realized Leonard had been right about everything. The thing that scared me most wasn't losing access to my grandchildren. I'd already figured out how to maintain that through the school. What terrified me was watching Leonard's legacy, 15 years of careful savings, money he'd set aside dollar by dollar while working 60-hour weeks, get gambled away while my grandchildren went without school supplies. This was about more than just me. It was about honoring my husband's final wishes, about protecting 3 innocent kids from their mother's addiction, about making sure Darius had the financial leverage to protect his children if this marriage collapsed. I'd spent the last 3 years missing Leonard every single day, missing his steady voice, missing the way he'd sit at our kitchen table and work through problems with that methodical accountant's brain, missing his certainty that everything would work out if we just planned carefully enough. Standing in my living room that August afternoon, I wished desperately that he was there, that he could tell me I was doing the right thing, that using the trust clause wasn't cruel, it was protective, that loving someone sometimes means setting boundaries that force them to face their truth. But Leonard was gone, and I had to decide alone. And here's the part that would break Vanessa's world apart. Darius had already filed for divorce that morning. 6 hours before she called to threaten me, my attorney colleague was representing him pro bono. The evidence was already compiled. The emergency custody motion was already submitted. Vanessa's threat came 6 hours too late. She'd activated the trust clause, eliminated herself as a beneficiary, given me exactly the legal standing I needed to support my son's custody case. All with one angry phone call, but that's not the end of the story. It's barely the beginning. But to understand how we got there, how Leonard saw this crisis coming 3 years before he died, how he built protection into the very foundation of our family's finances, you need to know the life we built together. You need to know the man who loved his grandchildren enough to plan for their protection even after his death. Leonard and I met in 1982 at Arizona State University. We were both first-generation college students. My parents cleaned houses in Tucson. His father worked construction in Mesa. We sat next to each other in Economics 101, and I remember thinking he was the most serious person I'd ever met. While other students partied, Leonard studied. While I stayed up late writing papers, he was in the library calculating something on graph paper. He was studying accounting. I was pursuing law. We got married in 1985, right after graduation. But here's the part that surprises people. Our son Darius was born in 1983, 2 years before we married. I was pregnant my senior year. Leonard proposed the day I told him, but I said no, not yet. I wanted to finish my degree first, prove I could be both a mother and a lawyer. Leonard supported that decision without question. We built our careers side by side. Leonard became a certified public accountant specializing in estate planning. I became a family law attorney. For 38 years, I represented women and children in custody battles, divorce proceedings, domestic violence cases. Leonard protected families' financial futures. We had the same core value. Families, especially women and children, needed protection from those who'd exploit them. I remember Leonard telling clients at our dinner table, never their names, just the principles. Your legacy should protect, not divide. Money should be a shield, not a weapon. We bought our North Phoenix home in 1987 for $89,000. Leonard joked we were rich because we had a 3-bedroom house with a backyard. That same house is worth over $520,000 now. We raised Darius there. We built our lives there. That oak desk where he drafted trust documents, he'd refinished it himself from a garage sale find, spent 3 weekends sanding and staining until it gleamed like honey. The wall behind him was lined with client files, years of careful planning documented in manila folders. And on that desk, facing his chair where he worked late into the night, he kept a framed photo of 3 faces, Aiden, Sophia, and Jordan, our grandchildren, taken at Christmas 2018. He'd look at that photo every time he lifted his head from paperwork. This is why, he'd say when I'd tell him to come to bed. This is who I'm protecting. When Darius met Vanessa Martinez at a Phoenix networking event in 2014, Leonard and I were cautiously optimistic. Darius was 32, working in IT, ready to settle down. Vanessa was 30, ambitious, charming. She came from a wealthy Scottsdale family. Her father was a real estate developer who'd built custom homes throughout the valley. But in 2008, the recession destroyed him. Bankruptcy. Foreclosure. Everything gone. I remember meeting Vanessa for the first time at dinner. She held herself with the confidence of someone who'd once had money, who remembered what wealth felt like. She was polite, engaging, asked thoughtful questions about my legal work, but there were comments that made me uncomfortable even then, though I couldn't articulate why. "I'll never be poor again," she said, laughing when we talked about the recession. Not, "I never want to struggle again." Specifically, "I'll never be poor." "Darius is so stable," she told me privately, not kind or funny. Stable. "Your house must be worth $500,000 by now," she mentioned casually, though I'd never discussed property values with her. Leonard noticed her spending patterns at family gatherings. She always ordered the most expensive items on the menu: appetizers, entrees, desserts, wine. When we'd suggest splitting bills at restaurants, she'd shift uncomfortably, change the subject. She talked frequently about money, about property values, about investments, about what things cost. They got married in June 2015. The wedding was beautiful, expensive. Vanessa's mother paid for most of it. Her father couldn't contribute. The twins, Aiden and Sophia, were born in 2016. Jordan followed in 2019. Leonard was 65 when Jordan was born, and he cried holding that baby. "3," he said. "We have 3. But there was an incident at Thanksgiving 2018 that Leonard and I should have taken more seriously. The twins were just 2 years old. Vanessa was pregnant with Jordan. At dinner, I mentioned that instead of spending $8,000 on a Disneyland vacation with toddlers who wouldn't remember it, maybe they could start education savings accounts for the kids. I wasn't being judgmental. I was being practical. As a family law attorney, I'd seen too many families with no financial cushion when crisis hit. Vanessa's face went cold. "You're telling us how to spend our money?" "No, if you keep interfering with our parenting decisions," she said, voice sharp as glass, "we won't be coming for Christmas." Darius apologized to me privately later. "She's sensitive about money since her dad's bankruptcy. She wants to give the kids experiences she lost. Please be patient with her." So I was patient. For years, I was patient. Do you ever look back and see the red flags you ignored because you wanted to believe the best in someone? Because challenging them would have meant admitting your family was in trouble. Remember Darius, my 41-year-old son, the IT manager who'd married Vanessa in 2015, had been caught between loyalty to his wife and protecting his children for years before this crisis. Have you ever had to protect family money from someone's addiction? Tell me in the comments. In May 2019, Leonard was diagnosed with high blood pressure and early signs of heart disease. Our doctor told him to reduce stress, cut back on work hours, exercise more. Leonard did the opposite. He became obsessed with getting affairs in order. Between May and August 2019, he revised our entire estate plan. He established separate trust funds for each grandchild. Aiden and Sophia were 4 years old. Jordan had just been born. $175,000 per child. He'd been saving for years without telling me the full amount. I thought it was normal grandfather preparation, making sure the grandkids had college funds, ensuring their futures were protected if something happened to us. But Leonard spent weeks drafting what he called the Parental Conduct Clause. I'd never seen language like that in estate documents. It was unusually specific about denying grandparent access, about weaponization of children, about emotional manipulation. "Leonard, why are you being so detailed about this?" I asked one night in August 2019. "It's like you're expecting our family to fall apart." He pulled out 3 client files from his accounting practice, real cases he'd worked on over the years, families torn apart by divorce, addiction, desperation. One case haunted him. A grandmother with terminal cancer who'd been denied access to her grandchildren by a daughter-in-law who wanted early distribution of inheritance. The grandmother had died without seeing them one last time. The money was gone within 18 months after her death, gambled away by the daughter-in-law. "Maxine," Leonard said, his voice heavy, "I've seen what desperation does to people, especially around money. If Darius or his spouse ever tries to weaponize our grandchildren against you, If they try to manipulate you by threatening your access to those kids, I want you to have legal protection, financial leverage. I've watched good people become monsters when addiction or greed takes over. I won't let that happen to you." I kissed his forehead. "You're always planning 3 steps ahead." He smiled, but it was sad, tired. "I might not be here to protect you myself, Max. Someone has to think about the worst-case scenarios." 3 years later, standing in my living room after Vanessa's threat, I finally understood. Leonard wasn't being paranoid. He was being prophetic. He'd seen patterns from decades of estate work, patterns I dismissed as overthinking, as him being too cautious. He'd known. Somehow, he'd known. But I didn't know it then. In August 2019, I thought he was worrying too much. 1 month after he finished the trust documents, Leonard had his first mild heart attack. September 2019. The doctor said it was stress-related, told him to retire. Leonard kept working anyway, just reduced his client load. The warning signs with Vanessa started appearing around the same time. September 2019. Vanessa mentioned a girls' weekend in Vegas that became a monthly occurrence. Leonard noticed the pattern. Every 4 to 6 weeks, she'd be gone Friday through Sunday. March 2020. COVID lockdown hit. Vanessa became irritable, complained constantly about being trapped in the house with 3 small children. She gained weight from stress, developed insomnia, started taking Xanax that wasn't prescribed to her. I didn't know that part until much later. November 2020. Darius mentioned casually at Thanksgiving that Vanessa had credit cards he didn't know about. "She said they're for business expenses for her freelance work," he explained. I asked what freelance work. He couldn't give me specifics. February 2021, Desert Vista Elementary called because the twins' lunch accounts were empty. This was 6 months after the school supply incident would repeat itself. Darius had given Vanessa money for school lunches. The school said the accounts hadn't been funded. Vanessa blamed a bank error. Darius started adding money directly to the school accounts online after that. June 2021. I was at their house when Vanessa snapped at Jordan. He was just 2 years old for spilling juice on the floor. Her reaction was disproportionate. Violent anger for a toddler's accident. I saw Darius's face. Concern, fear. But he said nothing, and I followed his lead. I wanted to confront these patterns, to sit Vanessa down and ask if she needed help, to tell Darius what I was seeing. But in August 2021, 1 month before Leonard died, I talked to him about it. He was tired, weaker than he'd been in years, but his mind was still sharp. "Document everything," he said. "Don't accuse. If there's nothing wrong, your documentation is harmless. But if there is something wrong, if this becomes a custody battle, if you need to protect those kids, you'll need proof that no one can dispute. Dates, amounts, witnesses, times." So I started keeping a journal. Little notes about concerning moments. Nothing I could have used in court yet. Just observations. 1 month later, Leonard collapsed at his desk. September 15, 2021. I found him in his home office, slumped over that oak desk he'd refinished, that photo of our grandchildren still facing him. Heart attack. He was 67 years old, gone before the ambulance arrived. The funeral was September 20th. Vanessa seemed genuinely grief-stricken, or maybe relieved. I couldn't tell. In October 2021, when I met with Leonard's attorney to settle his estate, I learned about the trust funds, the full amount, the detailed parental conduct clause, and the sealed envelope Leonard had left for me. Inside was a 20-page memorandum dated May 2019, right when he'd started drafting the trust clause. He documented specific concerns about Vanessa's spending patterns, her emotional volatility around family boundaries, the Thanksgiving 2018 incident where she'd threatened to skip Christmas, her frequent comments about money and property values. The memorandum ended with words I'd never forget. "Should Vanessa or any future spouse attempt to deny you access to our grandchildren for manipulative purposes, That individual forfeits all beneficiary rights. Their share transfers to Darius as co-trustee. Our son will need financial independence to protect his children if this marriage becomes untenable. I pray I'm wrong, but if I'm right, you'll need this protection when I'm gone." Leonard had been protecting me and Darius and our grandchildren all along. While I'd been hoping for the best, he'd been preparing for the worst. 1 month later, Leonard collapsed at his desk, and everything I thought I knew about protecting family was about to be tested. The first real threat came in January 2023, 14 months after Leonard died. I was at home on a Thursday afternoon when my phone rang. Vanessa. I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken directly in weeks. Everything went through Darius. "Maxine, we need to talk." Her voice was controlled, rehearsed. "You can't see the kids anymore." My stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "You interfere with our parenting. You undermine me. You make me feel like I'm not good enough for this family." The week before, Darius had asked me to pick up the twins from Desert Vista Elementary. Normal grandmother duty. But when I'd helped Sophia with homework in the car, I noticed she didn't have the required school supplies, notebooks, pencils, a folder, 3 weeks into second semester. "Mommy forgot," Sophia had said simply. "I'd bought the supplies myself." $40 at Target. Then I'd called Darius later, gently, no judgment. "Is everything okay financially? I noticed Sophia needed school supplies." "I gave Vanessa $200 for that 2 weeks ago," he'd said, confusion in his voice. That's when I knew. The money had gone somewhere else. When I'd mentioned it to him, just mentioned it trying to help, he must have confronted Vanessa privately, and now she was retaliating. "Stop policing my spending," Vanessa said on the phone, her voice rising. "Stop undermining me as a mother. You make me feel like you're constantly judging every decision I make." "Vanessa, I wasn't. 2 days from now, I'm sending you an email. You're not welcome at our house anymore. If you want to see the kids, Darius can bring them to you, but I won't be disrespected in my own home." She hung up. 2 days later, the email arrived. Formal, cold. I was banned from their Glendale home effective immediately. But here's what my 38 years as a family law attorney had taught me. When someone reacts this extremely to a gentle question, they're hiding something bigger. "Stop policing my spending. Stop undermining me. You make me feel like I'm not good enough." Those weren't defensive responses. Those were manipulation tactics designed to make me the problem, so she didn't have to answer the real question. Where did $200 go if not to school supplies? Late January, past 11 at night, Darius showed up at my door. He looked terrible. Lost weight. Dark circles carved into his face like bruises. His hands shook when he held the coffee mug I gave him. "Mom, I found something." His voice broke. In Vanessa's purse, a Casino Arizona receipt, $380 in slot machine losses. Same day, she told me she forgot the school supplies. He started crying. My son, 41 years old, sobbing at my kitchen table because his wife was gambling away money meant for his children. "I can't divorce her," he said. "Not yet. I'm not ready. But I can't let you disappear from their lives either. That's what she wants. To isolate them, control who they see." He told me Desert Vista Elementary needed volunteer lunch monitors. If I applied, I could see the kids during lunch twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. He'd provide written authorization as the custodial parent. He was listed as primary emergency contact on all school forms. Principal Dr. Rochelle Turner knew Darius from PTA involvement. She'd noticed Vanessa's erratic behavior at school events too. She agreed immediately. From March 2023 onward, I spent every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 in the morning, sitting with my grandchildren in that elementary school cafeteria. Aiden would tell me about soccer. Sophia would quiz me on spelling words. Jordan would show me crayon drawings of our family, always including me, always with a smile. Vanessa never knew. And from that moment forward, I documented everything: dates, times, witnesses, every concerning sign, because Leonard had taught me, if you think you might need evidence someday, start gathering it before you need it. 17 months later, June 2024, Vanessa called me again. This time her voice was different, friendly, warm, like we were old friends catching up. "Maxine, I wanted to reach out about something exciting. I know we've had our differences, but I think you'll appreciate this opportunity." She explained she had a friend launching a medical device startup. They needed angel investors. $50,000 would yield 30% returns in 18 months. "Darius doesn't understand business risk," she said, her voice smooth as honey. "But you were a lawyer. You understand calculated investments. This could set up the kids' college funds. I thought of you immediately." My legal instincts activated like a switch flipping. I asked for the business name, incorporation documents, her friend's contact information, a prospectus, basic due diligence any investor would require. Vanessa became evasive instantly. "It's still in stealth mode. They can't disclose publicly yet." When I pressed for even minimal details, the industry, her friend's full name, the projected timeline, her tone turned cold. "You don't trust me. That's what this is really about, isn't it? That's why my kids don't want you around anymore." She hung up. I spent 2 days researching. No medical device startup registered with the Arizona Corporation Commission under the name she'd reluctantly provided. The contact number she gave me, disconnected. This wasn't an investment opportunity. This was desperation wrapped in a sales pitch. 3 days after I declined, I was leaving Desert Vista Elementary after my Thursday lunch shift when I saw Vanessa's car pull into the pickup line. It was 3 in the afternoon, dismissal time. I was walking to my car in the back lot. Jordan saw me through the crowd of parents and children. His face lit up. He ran toward me, backpack bouncing. "Grandma!" Remember, Vanessa Martinez, my son Darius's 39-year-old wife, the one who demanded $50,000 for a fake business, had been secretly gambling at Casino Arizona while her children waited hours after school for pickup. Vanessa's voice cut across the parking lot, sharp, loud enough to make heads turn. "Jordan, come here, now!" Jordan's excited expression crumpled. His small voice wavered. "But Grandma's—" "I said now!" The sound of her grabbing his arm, hard, made him yelp loud enough that other parents turned to look. "Mommy says Grandma is mean to us," she announced, her voice carrying across the pickup area deliberately, making sure everyone heard. "Say goodbye to her, Jordan. Say goodbye." Jordan started crying. Aiden and Sophia stood next to the car. I could hear Sophia's sharp intake of breath, the shuffle of Aiden's feet on the pavement as he stepped back. I didn't argue, didn't defend myself. I documented it. Mental notes of which parents were present, who'd witnessed the interaction, the timestamp, 3:07 p.m. according to my car clock. She thought cutting me off would break me. Subscribe to see what I'd planned. If you're still not subscribing, tell me in the comments. What's holding you back? The following Tuesday at lunch, Sophia leaned close to me while Aiden was getting more milk. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Grandma, Mommy said you don't love us anymore, and that's why you don't come to our house. But you're here. Why did she lie?" I held her small hand across the cafeteria table. "Sweetheart, I love you more than anything in this world. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements, and sometimes grown-ups say things that aren't true because they're scared or hurt. But I will always, always love you." That's when I understood the depth of what Vanessa was doing. She wasn't just cutting me off, she was trying to rewrite reality in my grandchildren's minds. Parental alienation, making them believe their loving grandmother had abandoned them while I sat with them twice a week in secret. Late June 2024, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Phoenix area code. When I answered, a woman's voice said, "Maxine, this is Lorraine Martinez, Vanessa's mother. I think we should talk." Lorraine and I had never been close. At family gatherings, she'd made passive-aggressive comments about career women who prioritize work over family, implying I'd somehow failed as a mother by being an attorney. She resented my education, my success, my influence with Darius. We met at a Starbucks in Scottsdale on a Saturday morning. She was 67, looked older, wore expensive jewelry that didn't quite match the worry lines carved into her face. "I know about Vanessa's gambling," she said before I'd even sat down. Direct, no pretense. "How long have you known?" 3 years, since 2021. Her father refused to help after what bankruptcy did to us, so I did. $30,000 last summer. I thought it would be enough. I thought she'd stop. My coffee went cold in my hands as she explained. She'd been paying Vanessa's debts for years. $5,000 in 2021, $12,000 in 2022, $30,000 in 2023. She'd kept it secret from her husband, from Darius, from everyone. "I'm offering to give her the $50,000 you refused," Lorraine said, leaning forward. "But I need you to do something for me. Stop interfering. Convince Darius to stay in the marriage. Divorce will destroy her. She just needs time and support." I set my coffee down carefully. Lawyer mode activated. "Lorraine, with respect, giving her money isn't help. It's enabling. You've paid over $47,000 in 3 years. She's now $63,000 in debt, according to what Darius discovered. How much more before you recognize the pattern? She needs professional gambling addiction treatment, not more money to hide the problem." Lorraine's voice went cold. I could hear the shift, the hardening, like ice cracking underfoot. "You want to break up the family because you never liked her. You think you're better than us because you have degrees and money and a fancy legal career. If Darius files for divorce, I'll testify that you've been poisoning him against Vanessa for years. It'll tell the court you're trying to steal my grandchildren." The threat hung between us like smoke. I realized in that moment I wasn't just fighting Vanessa. I was fighting Vanessa's entire support system. A mother who'd rather enable addiction than admit her daughter needed help, who'd weaponize custody court to protect her own guilt. I left that coffee meeting understanding something Leonard had tried to tell me years ago. Desperation around money makes people unpredictable. And enablers like Lorraine don't save addicts. They bury them deeper while feeling like heroes, creating codependency systems where the addict never faces consequences and recovery becomes impossible. Meanwhile, family members who try to set healthy boundaries get vilified as breaking up the family when they're actually the only ones trying to save it. Would you have confronted the enabler or stayed silent? Tell me in the comments. July 2024, a Thursday afternoon, I was at my regular lunch monitor shift when Darius appeared at Desert Vista Elementary at 12:30. He shouldn't have been there. He worked 50-hour weeks in IT, never left the office during lunch. His voice sounded hollow when he called my name, like something had scooped out his insides and left only the shell. Dark circles under his bloodshot eyes told me he hadn't slept in days. He pulled me aside to an empty corner of the playground while the kids ate inside. "Mom, I need to tell you everything. I can't carry this alone anymore." The confession came in a rush. He'd been wrestling with leaving Vanessa for 6 months, since January 2024 when he'd discovered the first suspicious credit card statement during tax preparation. He'd been hoping she'd seek help on her own, terrified of divorce shame, paralyzed by custody fears, praying daily it would somehow get better. 3 days ago, Vanessa had forged his signature on a home equity loan application for $75,000. Chase Bank had called to verify. When he confronted her, everything exploded. "She admitted it all," Darius said, his voice hollow. "Not $47,000 in debt like I thought. $63,000 across 8 credit cards I didn't know about. Casino legal threats from Phoenix and Vegas. Those weekend work conferences. Gambling trips. All of it. Everything was a lie." But the worst part, the part that broke him completely, was discovering Vanessa had stolen $12,000 from the children's savings accounts, birthday money from grandparents, Christmas gifts accumulated over 8 years, money from Leonard before he died. Gone. Used to make minimum payments on credit cards so Darius wouldn't notice the debt growing. She forged my signature on the withdrawal slips, Darius said, his voice cracking with every word. She stole from our children to gamble. What kind of person does that? He told me about Vanessa's threats if he filed for divorce. She'd claim he was never home due to work. She'd say I'd brainwashed him against her. She'd move the kids to California with her sister Rachel, already had it arranged, and use Arizona's 6-month residency window before custody jurisdiction transferred to California courts. But I've been gathering evidence for 3 months, Darius said, his breathing evening out, voice strengthening. Credit card statements, casino transaction records from subpoenaed loyalty programs, forged signatures, text messages to Rachel planning the California move, screenshots of everything. I'm filing within 2 weeks. I have an attorney, pro bono through your colleague. He looked at me with Leonard's eyes, determined, strategic, done hoping for miracles. When I file, she's going to blame you. She'll say you poisoned me against her. Are you ready for that? I thought about Leonard's trust clause, about the school lunches with my grandchildren, about the documentation I'd been keeping for 18 months, about the parental conduct clause that activated the moment Vanessa weaponized my grandchildren. I've been ready since your father wrote that trust clause 3 years ago. Let her try. Looking back now, I can see what Leonard saw in 2019 when he drafted those trust documents. He saw the pattern enablers create: Lorraine paying debts, Vanessa learning no consequences, Darius caught in the middle, and grandchildren used as pawns. He saw how addiction plus enabling plus access to inheritance equals disaster. So he built protection into the foundation of our family's finances, legal leverage for the moment when someone needed to say no, financial independence for Darius when staying became impossible, and a clause that turned Vanessa's worst threat, cutting me off from my grandchildren, into her own checkmate. 2 weeks later, Vanessa would make that August phone call. The ultimatum, the threat, the laugh she didn't see coming. But now you understand why I laughed, why I wasn't afraid, why I called my attorney immediately. Because the game had already changed. Darius had already filed that morning. The evidence was already compiled. The custody motion was already submitted. And Vanessa's threat came 6 hours too late to matter. Remember Vanessa Martinez, my son Darius's 39-year-old wife who demanded $50,000 and threatened to take my grandchildren away, had no idea that Darius had already filed for divorce that morning. 6 hours before her ultimatum call, the legal system had already turned against her. Let me take you back to that August afternoon, the moment Vanessa's threat still echoed from my speakerphone. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I dialed my estate attorney, Terrence Wu, who'd been Leonard's colleague for 20 years. He answered on the second ring. Terrence, Leonard's parental conduct clause just activated. Vanessa threatened to cut me off from the grandchildren permanently unless I give her $50,000. Silence. Then, Maxine, if she's using the kids as leverage, that clause activates immediately. But once you invoke this, it's nuclear. She'll be removed as trust beneficiary permanently unless you build in a rehabilitation contingency. Are you absolutely certain? I thought about Leonard drafting that clause in 2019, about the grandmother who died without seeing her grandchildren because someone like Vanessa had weaponized access, about my Tuesday and Thursday lunches with Aiden, Sophia, and Jordan, proof that Vanessa's threats were manipulation, not reality. I'm certain. But Terrence, tactical question. What if Darius files for divorce first? Would that strengthen his custody case? Significantly, with the financial fraud evidence he's gathered, parental alienation documentation, and the trust protection showing his financial stability, Arizona courts would heavily favor him. You'd be protecting his children's inheritance from someone who's proven to misuse funds. I called Darius at 4 that afternoon. He answered immediately. "Mom, she called you, didn't she? What did she say?" "She threatened I'd never see the kids again. It's over, Darius. We move now." "I consulted my attorney this morning," he said, his voice steady for the first time in months. "I'm filing Friday, 2 days from now. Are you ready?" We made our plan. Darius would file divorce papers. Friday morning, I'd prepare the trust documentation and evidence package for Terrence. Most important, Darius had been secretly recording Vanessa's phone conversations for 3 months under Arizona's one-party consent law. Calls to her sister Rachel planning the California move. Calls to her mother Lorraine begging for money. Calls to casinos negotiating debt payments. Evidence, mountains of evidence, all legal, all documented, all ready. But here's what I didn't tell Darius in that moment. As I hung up the phone and sat in the living room Leonard and I had shared for 37 years, I felt something I hadn't expected. Doubt. Not about protecting my grandchildren, never that, but doubt about whether I was protecting the family or destroying it, whether Leonard would have wanted me to push this hard or whether he'd have found some gentler way. I walked to our bedroom and stood in front of the photo of Leonard on my nightstand. "Honey, am I doing the right thing? Am I protecting them, or am I just angry? Tell me I'm not becoming the villain in my son's marriage." But Leonard didn't answer. He never would again. And I had to decide alone whether invoking that nuclear clause made me a protector or a destroyer. Friday morning, August 2024, Darius filed for divorce at Maricopa County Superior Court, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. His attorney, my former colleague Sarah Chen, working pro bono, filed an emergency motion for temporary custody. The petition cited 5 grounds: forged signature on a home equity loan application, a felony under Arizona law, $63,000 in hidden debt demonstrating financial irresponsibility and deception, theft of $12,000 from children's savings accounts, documented threats to relocate children out of state to evade custody jurisdiction, and parental alienation attempts coaching children to reject their grandmother. The evidence package was devastating. Bank statements showing Casino Arizona transactions, credit card records maxed to their limits, text messages where Vanessa told her sister Rachel in June 2024, "I'll have the kids in California by September. Arizona can't touch me after 6 months of residency there." Casino Arizona loyalty program records, subpoenaed through legal channels, showing 47 visits since January 2022, and the recordings. Darius's phone recordings of Vanessa telling the children, "Grandma doesn't want to see you anymore. She's too busy with her own life to care about you." This while I was literally sitting with them at school lunch twice a week. At 8 that evening, a process server arrived at Darius and Vanessa's Glendale home. He handed her the divorce petition. Vanessa called Darius immediately. Screaming so loud, Darius had to hold the phone away from his ear. He recorded the call. "Your mother did this. She turned you against me. She's been poisoning you for years, and now she's destroying our family." Darius's response was calm, practiced. He'd rehearsed this moment with his attorney. "Vanessa, I found your secret phone with messages to Rachel about moving the kids to California next month. I found the forged documents with my signature. I found the bank records showing you took our children's birthday money to gamble. This isn't about my mother. This is about protecting our children from your addiction." Vanessa hung up. 1 hour later, at 9 that evening, she called me with the ultimatum threat, the one you heard at the beginning of this story. "You'll never see your grandkids again." She didn't know Darius had already filed 6 hours earlier. She didn't know the emergency custody motion was already in the court system. She didn't know her leverage had evaporated before she'd even tried to use it. Here's what most people don't understand about addiction. It creates an interconnected web of lies that eventually collapses under its own weight. Addicts can't track all their deceptions simultaneously because each lie requires 10 more lies to support it. Vanessa's timing failure, threatening me hours after Darius had already filed, was the perfect example. She was so focused on manipulating me. She didn't realize she'd already lost the war she thought she was fighting. What happened in that courtroom shocked everyone. Subscribe to see the evidence. If you're still not subscribing, tell me in the comments. What's holding you back? September 18, 2024, Emergency Custody Hearing, Maricopa County Family Court, Judge Maria Ramirez presiding. I sat in the gallery with Terrence Wu. Darius sat at the plaintiff's table with Sarah Chen. Vanessa sat across from them with a public defender. She couldn't afford a private attorney anymore. Vanessa's attorney argued that she was a loving mother being victimized by wealthy in-laws trying to control the family through money, that the gambling was recreational stress relief blown out of proportion by an interfering mother-in-law, that I had been poisoning Darius against his wife for years. Then Terrence Wu stood up. He pulled a manila folder from his briefcase and placed it on the defense table. Your Honor, I represent Maxine Carter as trustee of the Leonard Carter Family Trust. I'd like to enter into evidence the trust documents establishing separate funds for the 3 minor children, totaling $525,000. Vanessa's breath caught audibly, a sharp intake that cut through the courtroom's silence. She had no idea that much money existed. No idea her children had been protected all along. Terrence read the parental conduct clause aloud, slowly, emphasizing every word about weaponization of grandchildren for manipulative purposes and forfeiture of beneficiary rights upon proven parental alienation. But the real shock came with the evidence presentation. First, Desert Vista, elementary surveillance footage, subpoenaed, time-stamped, showing Vanessa dropping the children off at 7:45 in the morning and not returning until 5:30 in the afternoon. School ended at 3 for 16 consecutive days in July 2024, cross-referenced with Casino Arizona receipts showing Vanessa gambling from 3:45 to 5 p.m. on those exact days. While her children waited in after-school care she hadn't paid for, the school had billed Darius directly. Second, children's school counselor Pamela Chen testified. She described Jordan's drawings from art therapy. Mommy yelling at Daddy about money. She quoted Sophia's statement from May 2024. Mommy says Grandma doesn't love us anymore, but I see her at lunch, and she always hugs me. Have you ever loved someone battling addiction? Tell me in the comments. Third, bank records. 3 separate children's savings accounts, $12,000 total. Birthday money from grandparents, Christmas gifts accumulated over 8 years, withdrawn without Darius's knowledge. Vanessa had forged his signature on every withdrawal slip to pay casino debts. Judge Ramirez's voice dropped to something cold and sharp. Ms. Martinez, you took birthday money from your own children to gamble. Vanessa's response destroyed any credibility she had left. I was going to pay it back when I won. The courtroom went silent. Even her public defender looked down at his papers, shoulders sagging. Surveillance footage showing 16 days of abandonment. Children's drawings of financial conflict, $12,000. $12,000 stolen from birthday accounts. Forged signatures on withdrawal slips, 47 casino visits, 47 documented gambling sessions, secret phone planning California flight. The evidence didn't just prove Vanessa's gambling addiction, it proved systematic financial fraud, parental neglect, and calculated manipulation of minor children for emotional leverage. Judge Ramirez ruled from the bench. Darius received full temporary legal and physical custody. Vanessa was granted supervised visitation only, contingent on enrollment in court-approved gambling addiction treatment within 7 days, weekly drug testing — she'd been taking unprescribed Xanax — and supervised visits with a court-appointed monitor for minimum 6 months. The children would remain in the family home with Darius. Vanessa had 10 days to move out. September 25, 2024, 7 days after the custody hearing. I arrived at Darius and Vanessa's Glendale home at 6 in the evening. Terrence Wu accompanied me. So did Officer Ramirez from Phoenix PD, standard procedure for high-conflict custody situations in Arizona. Darius had moved back into the house on his attorney's advice, maintaining custody advantage, preventing Vanessa from selling or hiding assets. Through the front window, I could see Vanessa feeding the twins dinner at the kitchen table. Jordan was in the living room watching cartoons. When I walked through the door, Vanessa stood so fast her chair fell backward. It crashed on the tile floor. The sound echoed through the house. "What is she doing here? I told you she's not welcome in this house." I used my courtroom voice, the one I'd perfected over 38 years of family law. Calm, authoritative, unshakable. "Vanessa, Darius has full temporary custody as of last Tuesday afternoon. Judge Ramirez reviewed the trust documents and your bank records. You've been removed as beneficiary from the children's trust funds. The court found evidence of financial exploitation of minors." Vanessa turned to Darius. Her voice was rising, breaking. "You let her do this? You're choosing your mother over your wife? Over your children's mother?" Darius's voice cracked with exhaustion and grief. "I'm choosing my children over your addiction, Vanessa. The gambling, the forged signatures, taking money from their savings accounts. When were you going to stop? When were you going to choose them?" 30 seconds of silence. The twins were upstairs with Darius's sister Maya, playing video games with headphones on, protected from the confrontation. That had been my only condition for being present. Vanessa collapsed back into her chair. She finally understood. She'd lost every leverage point. The threats had no power. The manipulation had stopped working. The children were protected. She whispered, "I needed help. Why didn't anyone help me?" You're probably wondering how judges assess parental fitness in custody cases like this. Pattern of behavior matters more than single incidents. Financial crimes against children are treated as severe red flags indicating ongoing danger. Addiction without treatment seeking is viewed as active threat to child welfare. But most importantly, judges look at which parent prioritizes children's needs over their own desires. Darius had spent 6 months gathering evidence, consulting attorneys, preparing financial stability through the trust protection. Vanessa had spent 6 months gambling, forging signatures, and coaching children to reject their grandmother. The judge's decision wasn't difficult. It was obvious. I didn't answer Vanessa's question that night. I didn't tell her that her mother had been paying her debts for 3 years, enabling the addiction. I didn't tell her that Darius had begged her to seek help for months before filing, because the truth was, she'd been offered help, many times, by many people. She'd refused it all until the consequences became unavoidable. Sometimes love means forcing the crisis that makes recovery possible, even when it looks like destruction, even when it hurts everyone involved. That night, standing in that kitchen with police escort and evidence of systematic fraud, I understood what Leonard had been trying to teach me. Protection sometimes requires pain. Boundaries sometimes look like betrayal. And the hardest kind of love is the kind that says no when someone desperately wants you to say yes. October 15, 2024. 2 weeks after that confrontation in Vanessa's kitchen, Judge Maria Ramirez issued the final temporary custody order. Darius received full legal and physical custody of Aiden, Sophia, and Jordan. Vanessa was granted supervised visitation, but with 3 non-negotiable conditions. First, enrollment in a court-approved gambling addiction treatment program within 7 days. Second, weekly drug testing for 6 months. The court-ordered psychological evaluation had revealed she'd been taking unprescribed Xanax, buying it from a coworker to manage the anxiety her gambling created. Third, all visits would be supervised by a court-appointed monitor at a neutral location, the community center, $40 an hour. Vanessa would pay. Minimum 6 months of supervision. Possibly longer if her treatment progress was insufficient. Vanessa had 10 days to move out of the family home. She moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Tempe. Her sister Rachel helped pay the $1,200 monthly rent. Rachel, who'd been ready to help her flee to California with the children just months ago, was now helping her face consequences instead. Remember, Vanessa Martinez, my 39-year-old daughter-in-law who'd gambled away $63,000 and stolen $12,000 from her own children, was now facing court-ordered treatment and supervised visitation, living separately from the children she'd weaponized against me. The children struggled, badly. Jordan, 5 years old, asked Darius every single night, "When is Mommy coming home? Did we make her leave?" Sophia, 8, became withdrawn at school. She stopped participating in class, stopped raising her hand. Her teacher, Mrs. Henderson, called Darius concerned. Sophia was a straight-A student who suddenly couldn't focus. Aiden, also 8, showed anger issues, pushing classmates at recess, yelling at his teacher when she corrected his work. He got sent to the principal's office twice in the first week after custody changed. Darius immediately enrolled all 3 children in family therapy with Dr. Patricia Chen, who specialized in parental alienation recovery and helping children understand addiction's impact on families. The first session was October 20th, 2024. Jordan cried through most of it, asking Dr. Chen the question that broke my heart. Why was Grandma bad before, but now she's good? Sophia said quietly, "Mommy told us Grandma didn't love us. But Grandma was at school with us the whole time. Why did Mommy lie?" Aiden, angrier than his siblings, said, "I don't want to see Mommy anymore. She's mean. She made Daddy cry." By the third therapy session 2 weeks later, something had shifted. Dr. Chen had spent hours helping them understand that Mommy is sick like when you have the flu, but this sickness affects the choices people make, not their body temperature. Jordan stopped asking if they'd made Mommy leave. Sophia started participating in class again. Aiden's anger softened into confusion, which was progress. Recovery isn't linear, but it was beginning. Would you have given her a second chance? Subscribe and tell me. If you're still not subscribing, tell me in the comments, what's holding you back? That same day, October 20th, 2024, Vanessa checked into Desert Hope Treatment Center in Scottsdale, 60-day inpatient program specializing in gambling addiction and co-occurring anxiety disorders, $18,000 total. Darius's insurance covered part. Rachel paid the rest. The first 2 weeks were brutal. No outside contact allowed, total digital detox, mandatory group therapy twice daily, individual counseling every day, cognitive behavioral therapy focusing on addiction triggers. Week 3, November 10th, 2024, Vanessa was permitted one 15-minute phone call. She called Darius at 7 in the evening. He was helping Jordan with math homework at the kitchen table. When he answered, her voice sounded different. Raw, exhausted, stripped of all the defensive anger I'd heard for years, sober in every sense of the word. "Darius, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it yet, but I need you to know something." He put the phone on speaker so I could hear. I was at their house for dinner, helping Sophia with a book report in the living room. "I see it now," Vanessa said, her voice cracking. "How I used the kids. How I blamed your mother for my own choices. How I told myself everyone else was the problem. You, Maxine, my mom, the casinos. Bad luck. Everything except me." She took a shaky breath. "I've been gambling for 4 years, not 3. I started when Jordan was born, when I felt trapped at home with 3 kids under 5, when I couldn't control anything in my life except whether I won or lost at the slots. Every time I lost, I told myself next time would be different. Next time, I'd win it all back and no one would ever know." Darius's hand was shaking on the phone. "I'm in group therapy with a woman who stole from her mother's funeral fund to gamble. That's who I became. Someone who steals from children, my children. I don't know if I can fix this, Darius. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. But I'm going to try. Tell the kids I love them. Tell them I'm getting help so I can be the mom they deserve." Darius hung up and cried. First time he'd cried since filing for divorce. He told me later that night, after the kids were in bed, "Mom, I still love her. I hate that I still love her. How is that possible after everything she did?" I understood deeply, more deeply than he knew. If you've ever loved someone battling addiction, you know this truth. Addiction doesn't erase the person you fell in love with. It buries them under layers of compulsion, shame, and denial. The person you loved is still in there somewhere, suffocating. The question isn't whether you still love them. Of course you do. The question is whether they want to excavate themselves badly enough to survive, whether they'll choose recovery over the substance, whether they'll do the work even when it's agonizing. Loving an addict doesn't make you weak. Enabling them does. There's a difference, and it took me years to learn it. November 2024, Vanessa's treatment plan included mandatory family therapy sessions at Desert Hope. One session was court-ordered to include Lorraine, Vanessa's mother, the enabler who'd paid nearly $50,000 over 3 years to help her daughter gamble more. The session included Vanessa, Lorraine, Darius, and me, led by Dr. Sarah Kimura, an addiction specialist with 20 years of experience who'd seen every enabling pattern imaginable. Dr. Kimura didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Lorraine, can you explain your financial support of Vanessa's gambling over the past 3 years?" Lorraine's voice shook, defensive. "I was protecting my daughter. What mother wouldn't help? You paid $5,000 in 2021, $12,000 in 2022, $30,000 in 2023, nearly $50,000 total. In that same period, did Vanessa's gambling decrease or increase?" Silence. Then Lorraine whispered, "It increased." "So your help enabled her to gamble more without facing natural consequences like eviction, bankruptcy, or legal action. You gave her permission to continue by removing the pain that would have forced her to stop. Is that accurate?" Lorraine started crying. "I didn't want her to lose her family. I didn't want her to be homeless. I didn't want people to judge her." Dr. Kimura's response was direct, unflinching, necessary. By preventing her from hitting bottom, you delayed her recovery by years and put your grandchildren at serious risk. Enablers don't save addicts. They bury them deeper while feeling like heroes. You prioritized your own comfort over her actual survival. Then Dr. Kimura asked the question that shattered Lorraine's denial. If Vanessa had died by suicide from gambling-related despair, and statistically that's where this was heading, would you still believe you were helping? Lorraine broke down completely, sobbing, shaking, finally admitting what she'd been hiding from herself. "I was terrified of what people would think, that my daughter was weak, that I'd failed as a mother. Blaming Maxine was easier than looking in the mirror." She agreed to everything Dr. Kimura recommended. Gamblers Anonymous Family Support Meetings, Gam-Anon starting immediately, therapy for codependency, reading Codependent No More, actually learning the difference between helping and enabling. Here's what most people don't understand about codependency. Enablers create systems where addicts never learn that actions have consequences. Every time Lorraine paid Vanessa's debts, she taught Vanessa that someone would always rescue her, that gambling had no real cost, that she could keep going without facing reality. Enablers think they're showing love. They're actually making recovery statistically less likely, because recovery only happens when the pain of continuing becomes greater than the pain of stopping. Enablers delay that moment for years, sometimes forever. Early November, Lorraine called me. Her voice was barely audible. "Maxine, I blamed you because blaming myself was unbearable. You were the mirror showing me I'd failed her by protecting her from consequences. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I could have been vindictive. I could have said, 'I told you so.' I could have reminded her that she'd threatened to testify against me in court, but I thought about Leonard, about what he would have done, about Grace. Lorraine, we both love her. That was never the question. Let's focus on that now, not on who was right. She needs both of us fighting for her recovery, not fighting each other. October through November 2024. I returned to full grandmother visibility after 21 months of limited or secret access. Every Saturday, I attended Aiden and Sophia's soccer games. They played on the same recreational league team. Jordan would sit next to me on the sidelines, asking questions about the rules, eating orange slices during halftime. Every other weekend, I hosted sleepovers. Darius stayed present during the transition period. Court recommendation, but the kids had their grandmother back. I helped with homework at the kitchen table where Leonard used to read with them before bedtime. Jordan asked me one evening, flour dusting his nose as we measured ingredients for Leonard's pecan pie, "Grandma, can you come to school for lunch again?" I smiled. Kissing his forehead, the flour transferred to my lips, sweet and dusty. "Sweetheart, I don't need to volunteer anymore because I can see you whenever I want now. But sometimes I still visit at lunch because I miss seeing your friends." The small victories accumulated like pennies in a jar. Sophia laughing genuinely for the first time in months when we got flour everywhere making that pie. Her giggles echoing through my kitchen like wind chimes. Aiden asking me about his grandfather, my Leonard, wanting to know stories, his voice going soft when he said, "I wish I remembered him better." Jordan falling asleep on my shoulder during a Saturday movie, his breathing steady and trusting, finally feeling safe again. One evening in November, Aiden asked me directly, "Grandma, is Mommy sick because she was mad at you?" I knelt to his eye level. Chose my words carefully. These children would remember this conversation. Mommy is sick with something called addiction. It's not because of me or because of you or because of Daddy. Sometimes people's brains get stuck in patterns that hurt them, and they need special help to get unstuck. It's like if your leg was broken, you'd need a doctor and physical therapy to heal properly. Mommy's brain needs special doctors and therapy. Daddy and I are helping her get that help. You didn't cause this and you can't fix it, but you can love her while she gets better. The trust funds remained intact. Darius was now co-trustee alongside me. That gave him immediate access to trust income for the children's therapy, medical needs, educational expenses during the expensive divorce proceedings, financial security when everything else felt unstable. But the biggest decision still remained. November 2024. Terrence Wu presented the options formally. Option A, permanently remove Vanessa as trust beneficiary, legal under the Parental Conduct Clause. Final, protects Leonard's legacy absolutely, ensures Vanessa can never manipulate those funds. Option B, rehabilitation contingency. If Vanessa completes court-ordered treatment, 60 days inpatient, 6 months outpatient, weekly Gamblers Anonymous for 24 months, and maintains verified sobriety through professional monitoring, she can be reinstated as co-beneficiary with Darius. Probation period ending. October 2026. Option A meant absolute security, but potentially destroyed the children's hope of having a recovered mother. It sent them the message that people can't change, that mistakes define you forever. Option B risked relapse, risked Vanessa manipulating funds in the future, but it gave the family a chance at authentic healing. It modeled for Aiden, Sophia, and Jordan that people can change if they do the work. Darius asked me, "What would Dad want?" I closed my eyes, heard Leonard's voice from 2019 when he drafted that clause, when I'd questioned why he was being so specific about contingencies. I want protection, but I also want grace. People can change if they want it badly enough. Just make sure the consequences are real enough to force the choice. I chose option B, with conditions, non-negotiable conditions. Vanessa must complete full treatment, pass random drug tests for 24 months, attend weekly Gamblers Anonymous, Maintain supervised visitation without violations. Demonstrate financial responsibility, stable job, budgeting, 0 casino visits, participate in ongoing family therapy. Any violation, any single violation, triggers permanent removal. No second chances after the second chance. Darius agreed immediately. Mom, the kids need to see their mother try. Even if she fails, they need to know we gave her the chance. The legal battle was over, but the hardest part, waiting to see if Vanessa would choose recovery over relapse, was just beginning. This crisis taught me things I'd never fully understood in 38 years of practicing family law. Before all this, I believed family loyalty meant tolerating destructive behavior to keep everyone together under the same roof. I thought being a good grandmother meant accepting whatever limited access I was given, being grateful for scraps, never challenging my son's choices, even when they were destroying his family. I saw myself as a passive elder, someone who should stay in her lane, respect the parent's authority regardless of personal cost. After this crisis, I understand that real love sometimes requires setting boundaries that force people to face their truth, even when those boundaries feel cruel in the moment. I learned that protecting children sometimes means being the bad guy to their parent temporarily. Accepting being vilified if it creates safety for vulnerable family members. I reclaimed my identity as the matriarch of this family, with both legal authority through Leonard's trust clause and moral responsibility to protect his legacy and my grandchildren's future, even when that protection was painful for everyone involved. If this story moved you, subscribe, like, and share it with someone who understands family pain, the most profound lesson, understanding the difference between enabling and loving. Enabling looks like compassion, giving money, making excuses, protecting from consequences, but it actually prevents growth and recovery. Real love sometimes looks like refusal, like saying, I won't fund your destruction anymore, like forcing the crisis that leads to treatment. Abandoning someone in crisis is cruel. But refusing to participate in their self-destruction? That's the most loving choice you can make. Boundaries aren't walls built to hurt people. They're bridges built to save them, even when they can't see that yet. Leonard's greatest gift wasn't the $525,000 he saved. It was the legal structure that forced accountability without me having to be the villain. He'd protected me from an impossible choice. Enable Vanessa to keep seeing my grandchildren, or lose them by confronting her addiction. The parental conduct clause gave me legal standing to enforce consequences without appearing vindictive. Leonard had seen this crisis coming 3 years before it arrived. Not because he was psychic, but because he'd spent 35 years as a CPA watching families destroy themselves over money and addiction. He recognized patterns I was too close to see. He'd built safeguards into the very foundation of our family's finances, protection that would last beyond his lifetime. I wish desperately he were here to see the outcome, to see our grandchildren safe, to witness Darius's strength, to know his careful planning worked exactly as he'd intended. But his absence makes his foresight even more profound. His love extended past death through legal documents he drafted alone in that home office, with our grandchildren's photo facing him. It's January 2025 now, present day as I'm recording this. Vanessa completed Desert Hope's 90-day inpatient program in December 2024. Her voice when she calls sounds clearer now, less frantic, more measured, like someone learning to breathe underwater. She's in intensive outpatient care, meeting 3 times weekly. She attends Gamblers Anonymous every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening. 6 months clean and sober, verified through weekly drug testing. Supervised visitation continues at the community center. The monitor reports positive interactions. Vanessa is appropriate and present with the children. The divorce is proceeding through mediation, both committed to a co-parenting plan prioritizing the children's stability. Aiden, Sophia, and Jordan are adjusting. Therapy is helping them understand that mommy's illness wasn't their fault. That recovery is a daily choice. The trust funds are secure. Darius and I, as co-trustees, managing $525,000 that's growing with the market. The rehabilitation contingency is active. If Vanessa maintains verified sobriety, completes all treatment requirements, and demonstrates financial responsibility through June 2026, 24 months from treatment start, she can be reinstated as co-beneficiary with restrictions. I don't know if she'll make it. I genuinely hope she does. Not primarily for her sake, though I want that too, but because her recovery would teach my grandchildren something powerful. People can change if they want it badly enough. Mistakes don't define you forever if you do the work, and families can heal from terrible wounds if everyone commits to the process. Last week, Phoenix sunset streamed through my kitchen window. My grandchildren's laughter echoed from the living room. I could hear them building a blanket fort with Darius, the rustle of sheets, the squeak of couch cushions being rearranged, Jordan's voice calling, "Higher! Make it higher!" Leonard's photo sat on the mantel, watching over all of them. I touched the frame and whispered, "You were right, honey, about all of it. I miss you every day, but your love is still protecting us." I got my grandchildren back. Darius got a path forward. Vanessa got a chance at redemption she wouldn't have had without the forced crisis. But Leonard's absence remains. He saved us all, but he won't see the salvation. Would you have protected the trust permanently or given her the rehabilitation chance? Tell me in the comments. And if this story moved you, if you've been cut off from grandchildren, if you've loved someone with addiction, if you've had to make impossible choices to protect family, subscribe and share this video. Someone in your life needs to hear this message. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next one. Drop your country flag and location in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from. And if you're still not subscribed, seriously, what's stopping you? Your feedback means a lot and helps me improve every story. I'll see you in the next one.